The first time I moaned his name, it was not out of desire. It was out of fear. My husband's accountant had me pinned against my husband's desk, whispering threats in my ear, reminding me that if I did not obey, my husband's empire would come crashing down in ruins. And in that moment, with my nails digging into the polished oak, I realized that betrayal does not always come in the form of a kiss. Sometimes it comes dressed in silence, in shame, and in moans that were never meant to escape your throat. Before I dive into this painful, scandalous story, let me pause for a second. I want to thank every one of you listening or reading right now. Your support, your comments, your shares, they mean the world to me. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below, because stories like this are not just stories, they are survival confessions, warnings, and truths that need to be heard. The office smelled of old wood, leather, and fresh ink. It was my husband's pride, the place he closed million-dollar deals, the space he told me would be his legacy. But on that afternoon, his office became something else entirely. It became a cage where my choices narrowed until I felt suffocated. Do you understand what is at stake? Richard, my husband's accountant, hissed, slamming a stack of files on the desk. His face was red, his forehead shining with sweat, his tie loosened as if his sins were choking him. I had discovered something I was not meant to see. A line of numbers that did not add up. Accounts draining like a slow leak. My husband trusted him, and yet here was proof that the man had been stealing. I confronted him, foolishly believing that truth would give me power. But Richard was more dangerous than I imagined. You think your husband will believe you? He asked, his eyes narrowing. You think he will not see this as a desperate wife trying to stir chaos in his business? I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry, my palms clammy. He deserves to know the truth. Richard's laugh was low, dark, echoing in the walls of the office. He stepped closer, his breath hot against my cheek. If you tell him, I will make sure you are the first one he suspects. Do you know how easy it will be to plant evidence? A single transaction made from your personal account, a single receipt in your name, and your life will collapse. Your marriage. Your dignity. Everything. My chest tightened as I realized the noose he was weaving around me. I backed up until my hip hit the edge of the desk. His hand pressed down on the wood beside me, caging me in. You want this to go away, he whispered. Then play along. Make it look like you wanted me. Make it sound like it was never theft, never betrayal, but passion. Give me what I want, and I will bury every trace of this mess. Moan my name, and no one will ever know. The words sickened me. I shook my head, my voice trembling. You are insane. My husband will. Your husband will never know, Richard cut in, his tone sharp. Unless you want him to. It was not a choice. It was survival. The walls of that office closed in on me, suffocating me with silence. My heart thundered, my body shook, and when he pressed harder, his lips grazing my ear, I broke. A sound left me, low, strangled, humiliating. His name. I hated myself the moment it slipped out. My husband's desk creaked beneath my grip as tears stung my eyes. Richard smirked, victorious. That is it, he murmured. Louder. Make it believable. The shame burned deeper than any betrayal I had ever known. I felt the weight of my husband's framed photograph staring at me from the shelves, his awards glinting under the light, his legacy tainted by something he could never imagine happening inside his sacred office. When it was over, I staggered away, clutching my coat around me as if it could hide my disgrace. Richard straightened his tie, sliding the incriminating files back into his briefcase with casual ease. You keep quiet, and I keep your world intact, he said coldly. But remember, if you ever breathe a word, I have enough to ruin you before you ruin me. I left that office broken, humiliated, but worse, complicit. My silence would protect my husband, but my silence also gave Richard power. That night, as my husband kissed me goodnight, I felt bile rise in my throat. He had no idea that his most trusted man had stolen not only his money, but also a part of me. The days that followed blurred into torment. Every time I saw Richard's number flash across my phone, dread filled my veins. He knew he owned me now, knew I could not risk speaking. And every glance at my husband's proud smile only deepened the guilt. But one thing Richard underestimated was how far guilt can push a woman. Shame can silence, yes. But shame can also ignite rage. And slowly, beneath the fear, a dangerous fire began to burn in me. I knew I could not stay silent forever. And then came the night my husband invited Richard and his wife over for dinner. When I opened the door and saw him standing there with his arm around his perfectly polished wife, his smirk hidden behind a mask of charm, I realized the game had only just begun. And as I poured the wine into his glass, my hand trembling, I whispered to myself, if he thinks I will keep his secret forever, he has no idea who he is dealing with. The night Richard stepped into my home with his wife draped elegantly on his arm, I felt the ground beneath me shift. My husband greeted them warmly, clapping Richard on the back like a brother, oblivious to the venom hidden behind his accountant's grin. I forced a smile as I collected coats, my hands trembling ever so slightly. Richard's wife, Camille, was striking. Tall, blonde, polished, and the kind of woman who looked like she had stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. She carried herself with confidence, unaware that her husband had turned another woman, me, into a hostage inside her own life. "Darling, the roast smells divine," my husband said proudly, pulling me into his side as if showing me off. "She outdid herself tonight." I smiled at him, though my stomach churned. I had cooked with trembling hands, chopping vegetables while flashes of Richard's threats played in my mind. Every sound of the knife against the cutting board echoed like a countdown to disaster. Dinner began with laughter. My husband recounted stories of his early business struggles, Richard adding witty remarks to paint himself as the loyal friend and savior. Camille laughed lightly, her hand resting gently on Richard's forearm. They looked like the perfect couple. But I knew the darkness beneath that facade. I sat quietly, sipping wine, listening, watching. Richard's eyes flicked toward me more than once, subtle, quick, but enough to remind me that he still held me in his grip. His gaze lingered a second too long, the ghost of a smirk tugging at his lips, as if daring me to slip. When Camille excused herself to the bathroom, Richard leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine, his voice low. "This is a fine evening. Almost makes me forget the chaos of work." Almost. My chest tightened. My husband raised an eyebrow. "Chaos? What chaos?" Richard's smirk deepened. "Numbers never sleep, you know that. But your wife, she has a way of calming storms." The word struck me like a knife hidden in plain sight. My fork clattered softly against my plate, and I forced a laugh, my cheeks burning. "I think he means my cooking," I said quickly, trying to steady my voice. My husband chuckled, oblivious. "Yes, she does have a gift." Richard's eyes never left mine. His message was clear: remember who controls the truth. I excused myself to fetch dessert, my legs weak beneath me. In the kitchen, I steadied myself against the counter, my breathing shallow. The man was playing a game, toying with me under my husband's roof. And then Camille's voice startled me. "You are awfully quiet tonight." I spun around, nearly dropping the dessert plate. She leaned against the doorway, her arms folded, studying me. "Richard tells me you and he spend a lot of time together at the office. I hope he is not overworking you with all those numbers." Her smile was polite, but her eyes carried something sharper. Suspicion? Curiosity? Or was it my guilt projecting shadows where none existed? I forced a laugh. "It is mostly bookkeeping. Nothing glamorous." She nodded slowly, then tilted her head. "Funny. Richard is very protective of his files. He has never let me peek at them. Says numbers are boring." I swallowed hard. Most wives would agree. She smiled faintly, but her gaze lingered. For a fleeting second, I wondered if she suspected something, not the truth, perhaps, but something. We carried the dessert back, and the conversation turned lighter. My husband poured more wine, oblivious to the tension threading through the evening. But I could not shake Camille's gaze, nor Richard's smirk. Later that night, after they left, I stood at the sink, scrubbing plates harder than necessary. My husband came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "They like you," he murmured. I forced a smile. "Do they?" "Of course," he said warmly. "Richard is practically family. And Camille, well, she looks like she admires you." The irony nearly choked me. My husband kissed my neck, and I closed my eyes, fighting the tears. He had no idea that the man he trusted most had violated his wife in the very office he cherished. That night, lying beside him, I stared at the ceiling, thoughts spiraling. I could not keep living like this. Richard's power over me was suffocating, his threats chaining me in silence. But then a dangerous thought crept in. What if Camille knew more than she let on? What if the cracks in Richard's mask were already showing at home? The next morning, as my husband left for work, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee. And then, almost impulsively, I picked up my phone. Camille's number was in the contacts, courtesy of my husband's social gatherings. My thumb hovered over the call button, my heart pounding. If I reached out, I could risk everything. But if she already suspected, maybe she was the ally I needed. I pressed call. The line rang once, twice, and then her voice answered, smooth and curious. "Hello?" My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. "Camille, it is me. I think we need to talk. But not about dinner." Silence stretched, heavy and loaded. Then she said softly, "I thought you might call." Her voice was calm, steady, almost knowing. And in that instant, I realized I was not the only one holding a secret. Camille agreed to meet me the next day at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. I arrived early, my nerves coiled so tight I thought they might snap. I stirred my coffee without drinking it, rehearsing excuses, half expecting her not to show. But then the door opened, and there she was, polished, graceful, her presence commanding attention even in the simplest of clothes. She spotted me instantly, and for a brief second, I saw something flicker across her face. Not suspicion. Not anger. Something else. She sat down across from me, folding her hands neatly. "You said it was not about dinner." I swallowed hard. "It is about Richard." Her lips curved, not in surprise, but in something dangerously close to satisfaction. "I thought so." I blinked. You knew?" She leaned back, studying me with piercing eyes. "Richard has always had appetites. Women. Money. Lies. I stopped being shocked years ago. What I wanted to know is how far he would go. And now, I think you can tell me." Heat rushed to my cheeks, shame burning through me. "He forced me," I whispered, my voice trembling. "He threatened me. He said if I did not play along, he would ruin my husband. He made me," my voice cracked. "He made me moan his name in my husband's office just to cover his theft." Camille's expression did not shift to outrage. Instead, she exhaled slowly, like a woman who had finally confirmed a suspicion. "That sounds like Richard." Tears stung my eyes. "You are not angry?" "Oh, I am furious," she said calmly, "but not at you. At him." "Do you think you are the first?" "No. But the way he played you, that is new. That is dangerous." I stared at her, speechless. Camille leaned in, her voice low and steady. "I want him exposed. Not just for you, not just for me, but for everyone he has manipulated. You and I, we are not enemies. We are partners now." Her words hit me like a thunderclap. For the first time since that night in the office, I felt something other than shame. I felt power flickering to life. We began planning in whispers over steaming coffee cups. Camille revealed that she had already been gathering evidence, copies of receipts, hidden accounts, emails that Richard thought he had erased. "He is sloppy when he thinks no one is watching," she said with a cold smile. I told her about the files I had seen, the accounts draining away, the threats he whispered against my skin. My hands trembled as I spoke, but Camille's steady composure grounded me. "Then we have enough," she said firmly. "But it must be done carefully. He must fall in a way he cannot escape. And your husband, he must know the truth from us, not from Richard's twisted mouth." Fear gripped me. If I tell him, he will never forgive me. Camille's gaze softened for the first time. "Do not underestimate a man who loves you. The betrayal is not yours, it is Richard's. But if you stay silent, then you become part of Richard's crime. Do you want that?" Her words cut deep. I shook my head. "No. I cannot carry this anymore." The night of the revelation was one I will never forget. Camille and I arranged everything. She convinced Richard to meet her at our home under the pretense of discussing a new investment opportunity. My husband was already there, waiting, puzzled but curious. When Richard walked in, his usual smirk in place, he did not expect to find Camille and me sitting side by side. His eyes flicked between us, suspicion dawning too late. "What is this?" he demanded, his tone sharp. Camille's voice was calm, almost elegant. "It is the end, Richard." My husband frowned. "What is going on?" I rose to my feet, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might collapse. "He has been stealing from you. From us. I found the proof. And when I tried to confront him, he threatened me. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. He used me. In your office. To cover his crimes." My husband's face drained of color. For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Richard's mask cracked. "She is lying," he snapped. "She is desperate. She." Camille slid a folder across the table, her voice cutting through his protest like a blade. "No, Richard. Here is the truth." Inside were copies of his transfers, emails, falsified accounts, all neatly organized. My husband's hands trembled as he flipped through the evidence, his face hardening with every page. Richard's composure crumbled. "Camille, how could you?" "How could I?" she interrupted coldly. "How could you? All these years, and you thought no one saw. But I saw. And now, so does he." My husband looked up at Richard, his jaw clenched, betrayal written across his face. Then his gaze shifted to me. For a terrifying second, I feared he would see me as part of it, as tainted, guilty. But instead, he reached for my hand. His grip was firm, steady, filled with both pain and love. "You should have told me sooner," he said, his voice low. "But I see now. It was not you who betrayed me. It was him." Relief crashed over me, tears spilling down my cheeks. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Richard's face twisted in fury, but it was too late. My husband called his lawyer, his security, his partners. In a matter of hours, Richard's empire of lies collapsed. Days later, the scandal broke publicly. Richard was arrested, his name dragged through headlines, his reputation shattered beyond repair. Camille filed for divorce, her composure unshaken. As for me, my marriage was bruised, scarred by shadows of betrayal that were never mine to bear. But through late-night conversations, through tears and raw confessions, my husband and I began to heal. And one night, as we sat together in his office, the same office that once felt like a cage, he took my hands and said, "You were stronger than you know. Do not let his poison define you." For the first time, I believed him. If my story has reached you, if it made you feel, if it reminded you that betrayal can cut deep but truth can still set you free, then please, like, share, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Because secrets may silence us, but sharing them gives us power.